So I'm in this reincarnation group on Facebook, right? And before y'all ask me, I would say I'm open to the idea of reincarnation. Like once in a while, you hear a documented case, right? Like there was a case of a little girl, I think it was a little girl who was born in India or something, and she like insisted, oh yeah, last lifetime I was born somewhere random, right? And when they took her there, she knew her way all through the city. She took them into a house. She was like, "This is my old husband." Like, come on now, and that was back before this age of technology and stuff. It's not like she just Googled somebody and was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna pretend that was me," right? So once in a while, you hear a case that is like really convincing, okay? But anyway, I'm in this reincarnation group, and it's full of non-black people just telling tales. Let's be honest. Like the stuff they be talking about, I'll be like, yeah, I don't think that's like y'all like because this is my thing. This is my you know what? I'm gonna just play the intro and then we gonna get into it. Something I've often said about white people is that they're constantly on a quest to distance themselves from their whiteness, right? And let me explain what I mean by that and why they do it, okay? So sometimes you'll see white people, for example, pretending to be mixed. Like I remember there was a white guy talking about his grandmother was Thai, so he's mixed. Boy, you white. Like let's move along from that story, right? Another example, a lot of times you see white people use their marginalized identities as a way to pretend that it cancels out their whiteness and their white privilege, right? So you'll see, for example, white women say, oh, white men are the ultimate oppressors. They oppress us white women too. You'll see gay white people say, oh, I'm LGBTQ. I can't be racist. I'm gay. That was a very popular thing, like when I was in like middle and high school, right? But now people are trying to be more politically correct, so they don't say that as much anymore, right? You'll see disabled white people like, oh yeah, like I'm oppressed by other white people too, so and so and so I can't be the oppressor, right? And they do all of this for one reason, okay? No matter what form it takes, when white people distance themselves from whiteness, they're attempting to distance themselves from any accountability in this role of white supremacy. Because when they acknowledge that there's a system of white supremacy, the question becomes, okay, well, what is your white ass doing to dismantle it? And the answer is nothing, because quite frankly, white people enjoy white supremacy. like, are we shocked by that, right? So they pretend that it's not their job to dismantle white supremacy, it's other white people's job, right? And it's something else that you see, right? A lot of white people will refuse to acknowledge white supremacy in the present day, but they'll acknowledge it in the past, right? They'll say, oh, no, there's no racism now, but yeah, there was racism back during Jim Crow, right? But then when you look at videos from Jim Crow, white people were saying, there's no racism now, but there was racism during slavery, right? And again, it's that same thing. They're trying to distance themselves from that role of the oppressor because, well, if they acknowledge it, then again, the question becomes, what are you doing to end this oppressive system, right? I said all that to make a point. Whenever I'm in this reincarnation group, I see white people heavily talking about their past lives as samurais and African priestesses and so and so and so. Very rarely do I see white people like, yeah, I was white in my past life. Yeah, I grew up around Stonehenge or whatever, right? Like, no, they're always talking about some grand fable of a tale. Yeah, in my last life, I was the sultan of so and so. Like, what are we talking about here, right? But it comes off as if they're using reincarnation to distance themselves from whiteness the same way they use that drop of non-black blood or that marginalized identity or whatever, right? And I'm going to read a post of some comments to y'all so y'all can see like how nonsensical this is because come on now. So let me read to you all the post that sparked all of these comments. So this person said, I was talking to a friend yesterday about unconscious bias and we got onto how we were both more drawn to black faces, which is unusual under the usual effects of homophily. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Homophily. I don't know. It might be pronounced like homogenous, because clearly I see the prefix homo. It might be homosexual or homogenous. That homo prefix can be pronounced differently. Y'all get my point, right? We are both white. She then told me about how she used to have a recurring dream about being with African women in a kind of birthing room somewhere remote. She always visited the Okavango. She felt as though she had come home. My point is that this was a casual conversation, and I wondered how many people have similar stories that they just haven't mentioned. I think I managed to convince her that she was remembering a previous life. Okay, before we get into discussing this shebang, I'm just going to go ahead and read the comments, okay? And then we can discuss all of it together. The first comment I'm going to read says, I'm an aging boomer, European ancestry. In my younger days, even into young adulthood, I would on occasion dream of a black family, especially when I was anxious. I have a vague recall of saying mama to an older black lady, and there was also an older man. On the other hand, I've also often had dreams of negative black men who seem to represent hostility. Maybe that's why I don't separate black and white into good and evil. Humans can do both. So reincarnation, symbolic, a mixture of other factors, I don't know. A white woman replied to this comment, and she said, my Jewish daughter-in-law has seen herself in cornrows and has had a fascination with African Americans since she was little. She also loves very old implements from kitchens. My guess is that she was at one time a kitchen slave. I can sometimes pick up the previous lives of others. Okay, y'all, we're going to keep reading these comments, right? We're not going to get bogged down here. One of the admins in the group commented under the post and said, this is an interesting topic we don't hear about very much. Thanks for sharing. A white guy commented, he said, let me guess, you like rapping black guys, LOL. I thought this was funny, but we'll again discuss that later, okay? Now, in response to the Jewish woman who, no, she's not Jewish. She said her daughter-in-law was Jewish, okay? So in response to her, who said that she thinks her daughter-in-law was a kitchen slave, as she put it, I said, I don't think someone who was enslaved and forced to work in the kitchen would love kitchens. Slavery bad, remember? Someone else said, I'm also drawn to black people. I'm more comfortable, familiar. As a small child, my mother said something racist. It upset me so much. There was a song that had a slur. It said something about a colored boy to squeeze her. I didn't like it. All this before kindergarten. I married a white man. My sister married a black man. I just find it interesting. I have no previous life memories. I think that's just called being empathetic, but, maybe I'm wrong, okay? So, the next person said, I believe that I was black 2 lifetimes ago. All I really remember is leaving a home in the South where I was unhappy and responsible for a lot of children, not mine, with only a carpet bag, and that I moved to San Francisco and was really into hot jazz and ragtime. I believe I passed because I was hit by a trolley. Okay, well, as soon as she said carpet bag, I'm sure that carpet bag is just like a noun. Anybody could have a carpet bag. But when she said that, I immediately thought of carpetbaggers. That's what Southerners called Northerners who came down to the South after the Civil War to basically prey on them and make money or whatever, right? And I was like, that ain't even how you describe black people, but whatever, okay? Next, I commented, I said, I see y'all getting y'all stories for reparations. I'm entitled to reparations because I was black in a past life. With some laughing emojis, right? Now, back to the woman with the Jewish daughter-in-law. So after I said, yeah, I don't think somebody who was forced to work in the kitchen would think back on kitchen ornaments fondly, right? Like, because slavery's bad. This woman said, I got the impression that she was a child and didn't know better. It seemed that her life was not as bad as most of the other slaves. She believed that she was taken care of, at least as far as she remembers. There are differences in how the slaves were treated, some/most horribly, and others not so much. So it is not necessarily a one-size-fits-all. Interesting. So I replied to her and I said, a white woman telling me about a past life as an enslaved person and that it wasn't that bad. Why doesn't this sound legit at all? I said, I tell you what, let's test it out. How about you be my slave and let's see if you enjoy it. Now back to my comment where I said, I see y'all get y'all stories for reparations, right? One lady going to reply to me talking about, I don't see the humor in this. I said, because you want to be taken seriously. You're a joke though. like you know exactly why I put laughing emojis, because you all are jokes. Like why would you sit here and try to pretend that I'm laughing about, slavery or I don't know what she was trying to pretend. Maybe she thinks, I don't know. But bitch, I'm laughing about your corny ass pretending that you had a past life as an African woman or an enslaved black American or somebody living in the Jim Crow South or whatever. That's a joke. You're a joke. That's why I'm laughing. Motherfucking like what? So now let's get into the discussion of these comments because that was the last comment that I had to read. Let me tell y'all what I think is funny, right? This is my second time making a video on this reincarnation group. And I'll put the link to the first video I made about it up here, right? But I made that video because something similar happened. A white person claimed that they were enslaved in a past life, right? They were sleeping by the stove in the kitchen, right? And they said they remember a lot of turmoil. They think the Civil War was starting. Everybody was running or whatever. I don't know. Like, it sounds like a scene out of Going with the Wind. The Yankees are coming. The Yankees are coming. Everybody's running, right? And this person was like, oh, but I didn't get up to run. I was so at peace. I was so warm by the fireplace. I didn't get up to run. Bitch, are you stupid? Like, you telling me you was enslaved and then, chaos broke out and you didn't take the opportunity to run away from slavery? That's what you telling me, right? Like, and I'm bringing this up for a reason. Because every time a white person claims to have a past life as an enslaved person, why is it always the enslaved people who were treated the best? I was so warm by the fire. Oh, well, maybe she likes kitchen ornaments because she wasn't treated badly. Some slaves weren't treated that bad. How come y'all never got past life memories of slavery where you was getting your ass whooped as a slave, where you was getting 100 lashings and salt put in your wounds? Y'all never got past life memories of that. Y'all always got some past life memory of slavery that's, I was so comfy by the fireplace. It wasn't that bad at all. I love the kitchen because of it. That don't sound legit to me. What it sounds like is you're living out that Going with the Wind fantasy, right? It sounds like when y'all go to plantation tours and shit and y'all are, reenacting the Civil War breaking out and whatever. It doesn't actually sound like a real, like history of slavery. Let's be for real. I have to keep asking this question because it transcends the scope of slavery as well, right? How come whenever y'all have a past life memory of having been African or whatever, y'all don't never remember the colonizers coming to nothing? It's always, I was banging a drum, hey, I'm in the village Jeep thing, foo, and I smell like doo-doo. Y'all never remember none of the havoc that white people wreaked on Africa or the Black American community or nothing. I never hear y'all saying, yeah, I was African in the past life and my cousin got snatched up by white slave catchers and my village got destroyed because of the slave trade and this and that and so and so and so. No, it's always just some, I was a coon in my past life. Really? Like, I don't know. The eyes just seem a little peculiar. Just seem a little strange, right? Now, this is my thing. Like I said, I don't know if reincarnation is real or not, but I know that if it is real, this is not it. I know that for a fact, right? Now, again, like I said, I don't know nothing about it, right? I don't know if there's some higher meaning to it, like, you keep getting reincarnated until you learn your lesson or whatever, and then finally your spirit is set free, right? Or maybe it's just, you just keep getting reincarnated to the end of time, right? So maybe, maybe you did get reincarnated into a different race or whatever. Maybe you was racist last lifetime. You got reincarnated as a Black person so you could learn not to be racist. I don't know, right? I don't know. But what I will say is this. The odds that every current white person who claims they were an enslaved Black person or, a Black person in a Jim Crow South or something, right? And all of them had a good life. What a wonderful world. It was never, I was enslaved. My family got sold away from me. I was beat viciously. I saw somebody get lynched. No, none of y'all past lives as enslaved people or Black people in the Jim Crow South detail any of the atrocities that white people committed. No, it's just y'all talking about, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, I was a slave and it wasn't that bad. It doesn't sound that legit to me. You want to know what I also noticed? White people never have any past lives of them being colonizers or enslavers or nothing. No, you never see them saying, in my past life, I was a white colonizer. I went to Africa. I snatched little kids up, threw them on slave ships. I tore the continent up. I whipped Black Americans when we got back here, so and so and so. You never see none of that, right? You never, ever see any white people talking about a past life in which that occurred, right? That's why this just doesn't seem feasible to me at all. It seems like you all are attempting to downplay the crimes that you all committed by any means possible. And you will go so far as to pretend that you had a past life as an enslaved Black person or a Black person living in a Jim Crow South to sit here and be like, it wasn't that bad. I quite enjoyed it. You want to know what else is funny, right? Concerning the woman who said, my Jewish daughter-in-law, she remembers herself having cornrows. And I think she was a kitchen slave. And she is quite fond of kitchen ornaments because, slavery wasn't that bad, right? I would never, ever hear that Jewish woman say, in my past life, I think that I was a Jewish person in Holocaust, Nazi Germany, and it wasn't that bad. I quite enjoyed it. I would never, ever hear her downplay what happened during the Holocaust like that. But she chose to downplay what happened during slavery that way. Because again, this shit is not rooted in any reality. It's just about white people trivializing black suffering and black pain. Then the fact that this woman had the audacity to say to me, oh, well, yeah, it seems her life wasn't as bad. Some enslaved people had a bad life, but others didn't. Okay, cool. So how about you be my slave? I bet you're going to say, yeah, no thanks, right? You don't care if you have a life that's better than the other slaves. You don't want to be a damn slave, because being a slave by default means your life suck, right? Like, let's be for real, right? But you'll sit here and you'll downplay slavery on black people, right? But you never sign up for that treatment. You wouldn't sign up for the treatment of the best enslaved person, right? But you'll sit here and you'll say this bull hockey when it comes to black people, though, because again, all of this is about downplaying and trivializing black suffering and black pain. Then let's get on the comment of the white woman talking about, oh, I believe I was black 2 lifetimes ago. All I remember is leaving home in the South where I was unhappy and responsible for a lot of children. You don't remember like the lynchings or none of that, right? Like you don't remember none of that. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure that black people, at the time we had other issues as well, right? I'm sure. But I just think it's very convenient that as a white person, you don't remember any of the atrocities that black people were experiencing in the South. All you remember is you ain't want to take care of them kids. That's all you remember? Like, okay, girl. Anyway, like next. Let's pretend I went up in that group and I said, yeah, I have a past life memory of being Jewish during Nazi Germany. And I remember I was hiding in the attic, from the Nazis, and I heard a banging on the door and everybody was running. It was a lot of chaos. But, I slept through it because I was just so at peace in front of the fireplace, like I was so at peace. They would be like, what the fuck? Like, they'd be like, what are you talking about? Did you just try to paint like Nazi Germany as something like, like, I can't even, I don't want to say the word enjoyable, but something like mellow, something like, oh yeah, I was at peace during it, right? They would be appalled if I went in there and I posted something like that, right? And low-key, that's a social experiment. I should do that, okay? Because it don't make no sense to me how they stay coming in here talking about, yeah, I was a slave and it wasn't that bad. It was peaceful. What? Like, what are we talking about? But that's how you know this is not rooted in any reality. This is not, because that's not the reality of slavery. No way, you had a past life as an enslaved person and it was good living. No way, right? That's how you know they're just making this stuff up, bro. Now, I'm about to wrap this video up, but to all of the white people out there who are claiming to have past life memories of, oh, I was in Africa in a birthing room with African women or whatever, right? That's an example, right? Maybe you weren't one of the African women. Maybe your subconscious is reminding you that you was a white person who busted down the door and killed everybody in there and tore the whole village up and stole all the resources, right? Let's keep perspective on what side of history we are on. You all are always in this constant need to take on the role of the oppressor, but realistically, you're not, right? So how about next time when you're thinking, oh yeah, I have a past life memory of being an enslaved black American in the kitchen, so and so. Maybe that wasn't you. Maybe you were the white people who enslaved that girl. You have a memory of seeing her doing whatever. Maybe that's why you have such fond memories of it, because it was good living for you, right? Because no way were you actually that person and you think on it fondly, right? So how about you sit with those memories and those feelings and you figure out what they actually are.